Hello again. Welcome to another live build with me, Super Tom. And tonight I'm going to be painting, if I can get it on this stick here. Mostly be painting this head sculpt here. But first, just trying to warm up and do a little detail painting. I'm going to paint his little belt buckle here. This is Model Masters gold. Can't see it. It's gold. What's up, Norman Diaz? Yeah, no problem, dude. Let me know how the movie is. One reason I'm moving on from these Model Masters paints to the Model Color, the Vallejo paints, is precisely because of these stupid freaking lids that stick to the top of the cap and then they weld themselves shut, and it's a real pain in the ass. I'll apologize in advance for me hitting the camera or doing stuff out of view, because I'm working on teeny tiny parts and I'm old, so I can't see, so I'm gonna have to get up real close trying to get some of those details, and I'm probably gonna bump the camera a bit, so I apologize in advance. So I guess the one tip I can give, other than keep a steady hand and hold your breath, is really just keep a good consistency to your paints. With these acrylics, I think they're kind of designed to cure or dry really quickly. And because of that, if you don't water them down a little bit, they will clump up and dry on your brush almost instantly. See, I screwed up a little bit here. It's a little too watery, so it bled over. If you just get a little water on your brush, maybe a brush with a slightly stiffer bristle, you can kind of scrub most of that away. So right now I don't want it to be too watery. Just want the bristles to be wet. A good test is always your thumbnail. It's the most like plastic. I really screwed that up. I knew this was going to be tricky doing this on camera, but you can always go back and touch things up, which I will definitely have to do with this one because I'm getting this everywhere right now. But I'll just thin down the mistakes for now and come back later, clean that up. So there's a lot of little brown and areas along that seam line that I'll need to touch up, but I'm pretty happy with how the mask came out. You know, I'll get in there and fix that, clean up that line. Actually, all right, that's good for now. You may notice I re-sculpted the belt buckle because I had it sculpted wrong the first time. There's a couple other parts that I've already done. These came out nice because the hinge is right on that black seam, so that blends in perfectly. And what else? These are the couple heads that I already got done. So I'll go over all the shading I did for the face, and then down to the eyes. Gotta fix this guy's eye a little bit, but I'll do that later too. So I chose this one because it's got kind of the most detail. And again, hopefully I don't screw that up. I also have these to do. They're not quite as detailed, but it's a good casual unmasked look. So I used to use Model Masters for my flesh tones. This is, all this stuff's worn off, but this is a light skin tone, or skin tone tint base, skin tone warm tint. And then I had my own mixtures here. This one is like a darker skin tone, African American skin tone that I custom mixed. And I'll still use that one because I like it. It's a mix of like flesh tones and browns and grays, and then this was my custom mixed, you know, Caucasian flesh tone, which lasted me, I don't know, up until this year, so several years. And as you can see, I'm almost out, so I went on Amazon and I bought this flesh tone kit from Vallejo. And in it we have, from lightest to dark, we got light flesh. We got basic skin tone. And your flat flesh. Medium flesh. Salmon rose. Brown rose, and dark flesh. So I'm going to give these a go. Well, I guess I already have given them a go, but I'm going to show you guys kind of the recipe I came up with. If you follow me on Instagram, which I'm assuming you do if you're here, I came up with kind of this recipe. So the explanation here is basically, I was using this for airbrushing, and as you see, I already airbrushed kind of a base on there. And I just wanted to play around with these different shades to see the highs and lows. So the basic skin tone I kind of use just for an overall base. And then I go at it from a lower angle with the flat flesh. It's just a tiny bit darker. And then I mix together the medium flesh and the salmon rose for another darker angle to create some shadows. And then the dark flesh with the brown rose for even more darker shadows. And then I come back with the light flesh, that first one I showed you. And there I'll try to hit up certain high points, maybe on his forehead or his nose or things like that. That is by no means the only way to do it. That's just kind of the first pass that I've taken. That seems to be working. Alright, so because I'm using these, this is what I normally use to water them down, and I think this will work fine with the Vallejo, but I also have this stuff, and this comes in really small bottles, so I don't really want to use it. Water usually just works fine too, or Windex, or... So, oops, I knew I was going to hit the camera. I'm going to start off with my 2-0. It's not super fine, but it's pretty fine. The finest one I have, which I'll use for eyeballs, that's a 10. You can see that. And I also have this one, which is a 5. I don't really understand what these numbers mean. I'm assuming that you'd think the higher the number, the smaller the brush, but this 2 is finer than the 5. So, I don't know. Someone tell me how that makes sense. But I'm going to be using the 2 and maybe the 5. So, I'm going to start off. It's already got the base down. Whoops. Scoot these into view maybe so you can see. Start off with the 2. When I was first starting off doing this a few years back, and I was looking for inspiration and guidance and stuff like that, there's one guy, his name's Darren Carnell. He has a YouTube channel, he has a Patreon. He does like 1/6 scale repaints, and he does absolutely amazing work. Realistic, very realistic flesh tones, and I kind of just watched him for a while, and then a bunch of other guys and Warhammer guys, because they know how to add a lot of details and highlights and lowlights, and so I just watched a bunch of different painters and tried to pick up little things here or there that I could. So again, I'm just mixing this together. For the paint, for the face, I want it to be pretty thin, because I'm not looking to glob anything on here. What I've kind of learned from watching people and doing this is several thin layers is always going to be better to blend in those highlights and lowlights, and you'll get some kind of underlying tones, because if you really look at flesh, you know, there's pinks and browns and blues and, you know, all kinds of stuff mixed in to make that realistic skin tone. It's not just pink or brown or tan. It's always subtle variation. And, you know, it probably doesn't come across all that well, but you can see there's a tiny bit of little red in his cheeks. Then, of course, the 5 o'clock shadow, pinker of the lips. And then if you could see this in person, there's little, very, very subtle variations to all that in between. So I might not get this whole thing done, but I hope I can at least get to the eyeballs. Because I'm sure that's something a lot of people want to see. So also while I was searching for, inspiration and people to watch, I didn't really see anybody doing this scale. I know there are people out there that do, of course, but I haven't seen anybody do it on camera. Probably for the reasons I complained about earlier. It's a real pain in the ass to do this. Kind of looking sideways at it right now. So I'm just going to start building up these darker tones under the cheeks, around the eyes, and all these crevices. I've already done this with all the other ones. So he probably still needs a little bit of blending. That 5 o'clock shadow is a little too dark. What I do like about these Vallejos is just what you saw there. I can just put a drop out. I'm not wasting any. The paint's not drying. I don't got to worry about the lid sticking on there. Another thing you can use, which I may use for the eyeballs, is Flow Improver. Which I use this when I'm airbrushing. But I mean, I think it's basically like soapy water. It just prevents the paint from drying quite as quickly. Wish that would focus a little better, but get the light out of there a little bit. It's a little better. All right, what did I just do? I did 3, so I'm on the brown rose. This is gonna be your darkest shadows. I'll go ahead and drop this dark flesh out there too. Give it a little brown, a little red. Oh, too much. Joker86, what's up? Thank you for joining. I don't normally blow dry it or to try to prematurely dry it because Joker86 says he's at Anime Expo. Cool. See anything good? I don't normally blow dry to speed up the drying process on this. Because when I water it down, nice. Because when I water it down, you know, I want it to kind of dry gradually and naturally so it seeps into all the cracks and crevices. And sometimes this will take 2-3 nights. You know, I'll add a little bit here, add a little bit there, but since I want to try to show this to you guys tonight, try to speed it up a little bit. Wish I could force this thing to focus. Ooh. There we go. Sorta. That light's kind of washing it out. Yeah, it's these 1/18 scale, they're rough. Occasionally you'll get a little glob of paint or, you know, a little schmuckus stuck on there. Just try to water down your brush and get it off. Sometimes you'll have to go back at it with an X-Acto. That's what happened here. And obviously that really jacks up your paint job, so you want to avoid that. All right, so now I'm going to do a little bit of the 5 o'clock shadow. For that, I'm going to use some of this. Again, this is Model Masters. This is Skin Tone Tint Base Dark half. You'd think they just have like flesh, light flesh, dark flesh, or skin tone light, skin tone dark, but it's always some weird combination of words that don't make any sense with the next color up or down the chart. So for this, I want to get this really watered down because I want this to be a very subtle wash. And I'm going to use, I'll just keep using this brush. No, it's my 10. I'm actually going to use this brush here. This is just a cheap, crappy one. And the tip is all screwed up. But what I'm going to do is kind of do a little stipple effect. Yes, Joker86 asking if I've ever done Legends. Yeah, I just finished a Daredevil earlier this year. I've done a handful of Captain Americas. If you ever see pictures of a Captain America with full chain or scale mail armor, that is a kit that I created. I saw a couple of pictures floating around on the 4th of July. And what else? Usually, most of the 6-inch ones I've done are for the Whoosh Secret Santa. I've done a Hazmat. I've done a Deathstroke a long time ago. A New 52 Deathstroke. No Venom or Carnage yet, but with that new one coming out with the Cletus Cassidy head, I have this guy planned. Not with the screaming head, but I just started doodling on there. I was gonna use some extra sculpt and go at it, but I'm gonna want to focus a little bit more and try to get it detailed. I'll probably create some new weapons for him. I think this is a better, just like the Daredevil I made, I think this is a much better body for Carnage than the Bucky Cap one. So you can get him in some much better poses. So that's a little sneak peek. That is who knows when down the road, but he's sitting over there. So you might be thinking, wow, Tom, this looks like crap. And I would agree with you. And with that new Omega Red that is coming out, or just came out in certain areas, that body, I think, is a much better body for Venom. So that's also another project I have lined up in my head. Okay, so I kind of just dotted that on really roughly. I am not going to leave it like that. What I'm going to do now is go back with the... I'll do the flat flesh and tone it down a little bit. Joker 86 says I should make a man spider. Maybe. I'm so slow at making customs that I got a list that'll probably gonna take me the rest of my life to get done. Thanks, dude. Yeah, each one takes me at least 3 months. Sometimes I'll squeeze in some repaints, or I would like to do more one-off, or not one-off, but like accessories and stuff like that that I could cast and sell, make for other customizers and collectors. Because not only do I get more bang for my buck out of doing those, I like being able to spread the love where I can. Rather than making just one for one person. If that Captain America kit wasn't such a pain to cast, I don't cast it myself. I have Casting Cave do it. But from my understanding, you know, it takes a day just for the softer plastic to cure. So if you're making maybe one kit a day, unless you make several molds, but then they're not getting bang for their buck because they're using a bunch of material. So to get 10 kits, you're looking at 10 days if that's all you're doing, and so on and so on. Usually takes a month or so just to get 10 kits made. I have plans for that. Whether it happens this year or not, I don't know. Joker86 was saying I should make a weapons kit for that Carnage. And I really want to, because I just bought that new Revoltech Carnage too. And that thing has all kinds of accessories, so the new Marvel Legends one just comes with the extra hands and the one kind of Sith looking or scythe looking blade. But I'd love to make some, like, you know, shooting daggers or kind of a more spear looking one, or, you know, just make a bunch of gnarly ones. What am I doing now? Okay, so now kind of okay. It's a little hard probably for you guys to see. But now I think I'm going to go back to the lighter and start doing a very subtle dry brush. All right, so now I'm gonna go back to the one. I could use this, the light flesh, but this is really light. I may hit his nose with that, but for the most part, I think it's a little too light for Wolverine. Maybe on like a fair-skinned female or something like that. So again, I'm gonna just use this kind of roughed up, crappy brush I have. And with the dry brush, you just kind of want to wipe it relatively clean. And I'm just doing some gentle strokes perpendicular to the details. In this case, that's up and down. And while it is called dry brush, I find that you still want your bristles to be a little wet. Just very, very slightly damp. Because if not, with these paints, your bristles are just going to clog up. And then you'll start brushing little, like, paintballs all over your figure. This light, man. I need the light to see, but you guys can't see with it. You can kind of see some of those highlights. Just cleaning my brush out each time. I'm going to go back to that dark wash for his beard. I'm just trying to tone it down again. It's Joker 86 is asking if it's harder to paint the smaller heads than the Legends ones. In general, yes. In the sense that it's just, you know, a lot harder to get a lot of detail in it. It's easier in the sense that it's less work area. It's less to do. And maybe you got to be a little more aggressive on some of the highlights and lowlights to try to bring out that sculpt a bit more. So you see in a lot of like Warhammer, you know, tabletop gaming guys that paint their figures. And they're painting these tiny little things. And they, you know, force shadows and create, you know, create reflection and glare and all that stuff within the paint itself rather than just relying on the sculpt. So, I mean, you kind of have to do that a little bit with these. All right, so I'm going to get started on the eyes. And again, I apologize if I do anything off camera because this is going to be incredibly difficult. Again, I'm using this 10. Smallest brush I have. And I'm going to be, just because I have them, I want to use them up. This is a gloss, a white, which I'll use for the eyes. Flat black, which I'll use for, you know, the eyelashes. Even though on male figures, I don't really do a lot of eyeliner. And then he's going to have brown eyes. So this is a brown. And then you go back to the black, and then you go back to the white. I'll use a gloss black for the pupil. A lot of this stuff is just me being OCD. You probably couldn't even tell when I do something this small. But it makes sense to me to use a gloss. So the trick with painting eyes is don't ever think you're going to get it right the first time. And this is one case where it's really, really, really important to have good consistency of your paint. Because you will just glob paint on there and it will dry super fast, and then you'll have just a glob eyeball. And then you'll have to scrape it off and start over, and it's a real pain. So the sculpt on this right eye is kind of not all there. So sometimes you just kind of have to fake it. Do it where it should be rather than what's left of the sculpt. All right, so I got the whites in there. I don't think I'm that good either, Joker. But I try. Just takes practice. All right, so the flat black. So this is the part that I always screw up. Like that. I don't know if you even saw that. So I can either just go over that with more white, or I can try to get rid of it. See? And I'm just using my cleaning water to do that. I'm not using anything special. Careful you don't leave any water in there, or else your paint will just run. Which it's kind of doing. All right, so that's kind of a mess right now, but that's all right. So you can always go back and touch it up. Another reason to keep your paint super thin is when you go to touch up, you're not going over a mound of dried paint. So this is a very slow process. Okay, getting there. So now, if I'm doing a larger figure, no, you know what, I'll try it here too. I'm gonna do a little bit of black for the color part of the eye. I'm gonna do a little black right in the middle. This is by far the hardest part, because if you screw this up, you kind of have to start completely over. I don't know why, but the right eye, I guess I do know why. It's because I'm like crossing over his face. Always harder for me to do. I'm not worried right now about getting it on the bottom eyelid, because I can just cover that up with some more flesh tone. All right, so I got the black. I think that's good. Actually, I'm gonna do a little bit more, because you want it touching the upper eyelid. Okay. Now, let's close this up. Now I'm going to go with the color. I believe Wolverine doesn't have brown eyes. Tell me now. But I'm pretty sure he does. So now with that black, I want to dot the brown in the center of that black. Does he really? I need someone to fact check that. Someone this hairy can't have blue eyes. It's not genetically impossible. Son of a bitch, you're right. Blue it is. Damn it. Alright, that's alright. I'll do blue right over the top. Joker86 says he has blue in some, brown in others. So I was half right at least. I was gonna use this again with these freaking paints. This thing just welds shut. And then it doesn't even create a airtight seal, so they dry. And I have this pair of pliers down here specifically to open those stupid jars. That's how bad it gets. So I'm gonna use this blue. I'm just shaking it up. He's gonna have blue eyes with a very slight aura of brown. Wow, that is a bright blue. Good, good. I'm glad you were on here, because I would have left them brown. All right, so now the gloss black, dot in his pupils. That's the other problem with these. It's like symbiote coming out of here. I've had that stick to my figure that I'm painting too, which is very frustrating. So now that I'm looking for a dot. I need this paint to be a little thicker. Sometimes you're using such a small amount of paint that it'll dry before you even get to the figure. Too much. Okay, so he looks a little bug-eyed right now, but that's because he's covering up the bottom lid quite a bit. It's a lot easier to go at it, you know, and kind of lay the tip down than it is to try to stab it. So what am I doing? Oh, so now back to the gloss white. More tendrils. Now the really, really hard part. This one I do kind of want to stab it because I just want to add a little tiny reflection dot. Screwed that one up. Back to the gloss black. Cover up my mistake. Try again. Kind of see the glint in his eye. So now I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to use, since it's around his eyes, I'll go with the medium flesh tone and maybe some of the reds. The red brown, what was it called? Brown rose. I'm going to go back to the 2 here. These are sable brushes, by the way. It's a nicer hair than like your synthetic or, you know, like these cheap, crappy ones. These are synthetic ones. These clog up and curl a lot quicker than a good sable brush. It's not to say you can't do this with synthetic. I had a set of Tamiya detail brushes that I used for a long time too. What was I doing? Okay. I'm actually pretty happy with that. So while I have this brown rose out, I'm gonna get a little pink in the corner of those eyes. And then I'll go ahead and highlight his lips. And I'll tone down the lips a little bit, but I want to get this in there on his gums and tongue too. I'm gonna go a little darker on his tongue. Just to differentiate it a tiny, tiny bit with his the rest of his mouth. This is kind of a combination. It's purple, but it's not really purple. It's more like a bluish color. So I'm just going to take a tiny, tiny bit of that. I want to water this down too, because I don't want this to be that bright. I just want it to settle in his mouth. Make the tongue pop out a little more. Appreciate the couple of you guys that have, or gals that have stuck around the whole time. And anybody else who's watching at a later time, appreciate you guys too. This is probably not the most exciting episode, but hopefully it helps somebody out there. Oops. Alright, gloss white for the teeth. And this is again going to be kind of a dry brushing-ish technique here. Because I want to keep all that pink in between his teeth. Not like how the Hasbro factory comes out, where it's usually just a big mash of white in the mouth. So I'm just barely dragging it across the teeth. I'm gonna go the salmon rose and tone down those lips a little bit. You can see I'm using every one of these colors. Before, that combo mix, that custom mix that I had for the flesh was kind of a good overall base flesh tone. And then if I ever needed to add some reds or blues or browns to that, I would. But now with all these different colors that I have, it's kind of already done for me. I don't want him to look like he has lipstick on, but all right. And lastly, I'm just going to do the fringe around his hair, or the fringe around the hair around his face with a flat black. Just so this pops out a bit more. In case everyone thinks it looks like crap right now. So that's, I'm using my 5. I want to be careful not to bleed over into the work I just did. I'm sorry if this whole thing's been a blurry mess, but I'm just streaming this on my phone and doing the best I can here. Thank you, Daniel G. Appreciate you jumping on. Sorry being so quiet right now. I just don't want to screw this up on the last step. All right. I think that's going to do it for tonight. I still got to clean up a little bit of those edges. Might tone down the 5 o'clock shadow just a bit. But I like the way the eyes are. All I got to do is eyebrows, obviously. Actually, let's do one of those first. I'm actually going to jump off and try to get one of these Destiny 2 raids done with some buddies. I'll check it out, Daniel. Or if you can, just shoot me a picture on Instagram, or go to my website and shoot me an email. I can be a little more in-depth in my response. No problem. Yeah, you can email me at my website, supertomcustoms@gmail.com. Or I'm very responsive on Instagram. If you have an Instagram account and just want to shoot me a picture of one of your posts, you can do that. That way I won't forget to look at it. And if you just want me to see it, that's one thing. If you want me to critique it or give you advice or do anything like that, just let me know. But I tend to keep my opinions to myself unless asked. All right, so there we go. Got kind of a rock, one eyebrow up looking. Cool. All right, well, thanks again for everyone that stuck around, and thanks for everyone that's watching at a later date. I hope this helped. Maybe give you the confidence to do these smaller figures. Drop a like if you enjoyed it. If you didn't, keep your mouth shut. Don't hurt my feelings. Just kidding. Yeah, and check out my website, supertomcustoms.com. I got more tutorials there, as well as galleries of all my work. And definitely follow me on Instagram if you're not already there, and share this with some of your friends. I'm trying to grow this YouTube channel a bit so I can do more reviews of my customs, tips and tricks and tutorials and all that good stuff. So, all right, everybody have a good night. Bye.